everybody, this is Captain Sergio to another Captain Sergio's Fishing Academy. And today we're going to be talking about trout fishing. Best time of the year, winter months, big trout come in from the Gulf, and you want to make sure that you're ready and you have the right tackle on the boat. So let's start with very simple. We've got about every kind of size jig head you can think of, and there's a reason for that. It all depends on the depth of water that you're fishing, the amount of current that you have, and each one applies a little differently. Right? We start with 1/16, 1/8, 3/16. You got a quarter, you got a 3/8, and you got even a 1/2 inch jig head. Now, if you notice sometimes, according to the weight on the jig head, the eye on the jig will move a little bit. As you get heavier, they move it more towards the top of the head because it's the way the jig's going to go down, the way you want to work it, and that's the way it works. But for example, here's a 1/16. Now, if I was fishing in real shallow water, right along the edge of a drop-off, but the fish are sitting real shallow, I'll use that. In the winter months, we normally will use anywhere between 1/8 to a 1/4 ounce, 3/16 ounce jig head. And the reason for that is most of the time, again, you got negative tides. You got about 44 negative tides during the winter months, starting in December through about March, that you're going to get, the fish are going to get pushed into canals. They're going to get pushed into potholes or anywhere there's an indentation that there's more water around them. If you're used to fishing at all for trout, or if you go out here in the flats, you'll notice that this time of the year, areas that in the summer with a low tide, you might have 2 feet of water, you have a negative tide. You actually only have maybe 3-4 inches of water, 5 inches of water. There's no fish in there. Or sometimes it's dry land. So where the fish got to go? They know where these potholes are. They know where these little creeks are at. They know that the canals, as the colder it gets, talking about what air temperature getting down in the 30s and the 40s for about a week, that water temperature is going to get down in the 50s. Those fish got to find warm water. So what do? They go down deep. Now, it's a perfect time to use artificials. I love soft baits. It's fantastic. But before we start talking about it, a couple of things that you should be aware of. Number one is, I love to wear gloves all the time. Summer, winter, doesn't matter. 2 reasons. It keeps me from getting my hands cut up with the leader sometimes, with the fish pulling. But especially for trout, the gloves are wet and they're easy on their body if you got to grab them for some reason. If one that's already swallowed the hook, you still don't, you're going to try to save them somehow where a de-hooker won't work. At least with your gloves are wet, they got a better chance of survival. Number 2 is, I always tell everybody, a de-hooker. I mean, they come in all different sizes because trout aren't that heavy. They aren't really that big. I mean, you start catching 20, 24 inch trout, this will handle it perfect. You want a little de-hooker, so basically you can not touch the trout. If you're not going to keep them, just flip them and let them go into the water. If you're going to take a picture, the best thing you want to do is you want to use a fish grip. And what's good about Fish Grip Company, I like them. They make them all different sizes. I got them all the way up to for big grouper. But if you're into the smaller trout, this is perfect because you can go grab that trout, you can hold them up, take a picture with them. You got a wet glove, stick it under his belly, take a nice picture of the trout without damaging it. If it happens to be some of these gator trout that are coming in from the Gulf, you notice how small this is. The trout's mouth aren't real big like a snook or perfect for redfish too. So this is good. It locks in place. Now you or your client, they can hold the fish again, either a wet towel or your wet glove under the belly so you don't hurt the fish. Take your picture, you can release them. Now we're going to talk about a couple of different ways to fish for them. Number 1 is, I love to fish those potholes, those deep canals. It's now in the winter months. So again, I carry every size jig head on the boat because I don't know what weight I'm going to need. If it's, it might be 8 feet of water, but there's no current at all. If I can get away with a lighter jig head, I'd rather do that. And then, of course, we have about everything you can think of out there on the market. When I have somebody on my boat that really doesn't know how to fish artificials, paddle tail does the trick. All they got to do is cast it, slow reel it across the bottom, and it does all the action for them. And I love, in a lot of our shows, you'll see this color. I love what is called the moon. It's got little blue and black glitter inside like a white body. It's almost semi-transparent. For some reason, the trout go fish crazy over this. There's another one, a little different color on the tail. Again, anything sometimes with a colored tail, green, yellow, orange, seems to draw attention in the winter months. The other one that's easy for anybody to fish, the swirl tail, same thing as a paddle tail. As you bring this through the water slow, that tail just wiggles, makes it look like a real fish going through the water. Almost any color, but believe it or not, this white with the pink tail seems to do very good for us in the middle of the winter. And one that's, to this date, Captain George and I, we can't figure out why, but it's called the P&V. Actually stands for piss and vinegar. But all it is just like a little tapered worm with a colored tail. And we got a whole bunch of different colors on this. This seems to be a killer on trout. Don't ask me why. If you're used to using artificials, try the P&V. This thing really, the trout just go crazy over it. It's not that big. It's a perfect size, especially for the winter. And you work this one slow on the bottom. You just slowly bounce it off the bottom, and it looks like some kind of a worm along the bottom, and the trout will go crazy over it. Then we have the old standby, the imitation shrimp, and they come in all different colors, as you can see. This one happens to be a shrimp cocktail. This is, it's called Papa Murph. This is my favorite. Ruberry red. So, I mean, there's all kind of these, and everybody makes something like this, and it works. But to me, for some reason, the paddle tails, and especially the P&V, is a killer. Now, if you get into an area where there's bigger trout, or there's some redfish around, the sea shad, the big sea shad, this just tears them up. I mean, it's fantastic. It's a big bait, right there. Chicken on a string. I don't know why. It's kind of like more of a, watermelon color. Some people call it watermelon. Chicken on a string. It's a killer. We've caught big reds and real big trout. You get into a batch of big trout, they're going to want this. This is how you get away from the smaller trout, using the bigger baits. Again, now one of the things that we like to do, and you hear me talk about it all the time, I love my ProCure. When I put ProCure on, a lot of people just kind of wipe it on the body. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. ProCure is a gel, so it hangs around. What I prefer to do is right between the tail, the soft bait, and the jig head, that little gap right there, I'll pull it back, I'll put the gel in there and all the way around it, push it back in. To me, it seems like it puts out a better scent as you're moving and seems to stay on a lot longer. So I like to use my ProCure right between the back head of the jig and the beginning of the tail. We go one more spot. This time of the year, a lot of times as the sun comes up, early in the morning till about 9:30, 10 o'clock, you're down deep in those canals fishing for trout. Now the sun's up, 10:30, it's starting to warm up. If you have a clear day, not too cloudy, those trout will move up to find maybe 3 feet of water, 4 feet of water, where that water is going to warm up pretty quick because the sun's hitting it and it's very clean. That's when I switch over and we start using any kind of cork that makes noise. Now, Four Horsemen is not a sponsor of mine, but I love it. I learned this from Louisiana. We use it all the time. You put this popping cord on. Again, if I'm in 3 feet of water, I'll make the leader about 30 inches long. And all you do is put you a jig head, something like, maybe a 1/8 ounce jig head on it. with any tail. You cast it out there, and all you got to do is just pop it. Just get this thing, just pop it up, make that cork make a noise. This particular cork sounds like a wounded fish, bait fish on the surface. And around trout, believe me, they'll drive you crazy. They'll go after it every time. So what they do is they come after the noise, then they see your jig head doing this, and that's why you want it usually about 6 inches shorter than the depth of the water. If you're in 3 feet of water, you make it 30 inches. So when that jig head goes down, it doesn't quite hit the bottom. Now you pop it, it comes up, it starts to go down again. They hear the noise, they see the action, they attack the artificial. And they come in all different colors. To me, this is okay, but the popping one, concave on the top, this is the way to go. Now, if I'm happy to fish, and there's areas that we fish, that we have a pretty good drop-off right along the edge of the mangroves, where we have 3 or 4 feet of water right on the edge of the mangroves. And remember, they're looking for the sun. So if, let's say you're fishing in Tampa Bay, your best spot to start fishing for 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, that's where the trout are going to come up closer to the surface. That's where the sun's going to hit it first. So I like different colors. I like the green, I like the red, and I like the yellow. My 2 favorites are always going to be the yellow and the green. And the reason for that is, remember, as the leaves fall off the mangroves, what color are they? They're usually green leaves or yellow leaves. So you're kind of mimicking a little bit of the leaves that are on the surface, maybe in my own mind, as a deterrent for them to think, oh, that doesn't belong there. Yeah, it belongs there. It's a leaf. So you got 2 ways. The popping cork, I love to fish out in the open water. When I'm fishing along the edge, under a mangrove, I love to use my regular cork. Then I can adjust the depth according to how the drop off, how the tide's dropping, or how the tide's coming in. And these are my 2 favorite colors. I have 3, because if I have 3 people on the boat, I want to know where every cork is at all the time. But most of the time, these are the 2 that I'm going to go to every single time. Now, one of the other little thing, and again, they're not sponsors of mine, but I really think it's a great way to go, is I got hooked on these Planos bags. And I bought a bunch on Amazon on a special. These things are real heavy, double sealed, waterproof. And I tell you, I got all the soft baits I need in this bag right here, which is perfect. Instead of, you can't put this in a tackle box. You wind up with a tackle box the size of the table. But something like this, I got it full of all the baits that I like. I can throw it anywhere in the boat in any of the cavities, and I've got all the bait that I want. And again, the same thing as you can see with my floats. I can carry all the floats that I need in this bag. I know it's going to be sealed. It's not going to rip because this thing is real thick. I don't know how. I mean, it's a heavy plastic industrial with a double zip on it. Tight lines, enjoy yourself. Catch plenty of trout.